cover also frost dates. When do you begin? When do you stop? What's the sequence of planting? Here in the mountains of Arizona, Mother's Day is what the locals use as the planting date for summer vegetables. So I've been picking kale like crazy. I'm tired of kale. There's so much coming on. Parsley, lettuce, spinach, arugula, Swiss chard. If you harvest the stem or the foliage or the flower, like broccoli, you're eating the flower head. All the leafy things we actually put in 2 months ago. So usually March 1 is when we start put that kind of. As soon as the ground thaws, those plants can go in because the flavor tastes better on your leafy material. Okay, so there's 2 planting seasons for that. Usually it's going to be March 1, or it's going to be about September, somewhere in there, through October. And I'm harvesting, often I'll have broccoli we're a broccoli family, so broccoli casserole is the thing to have for Thanksgiving and for Christmas and every other family gathering. So I must have broccoli all the time. So to have fresh broccoli in December, it's like magic. But if you plant it in September, we've got such a long season that we can do that. So there's 3 distinct planting seasons here. It's the early spring. That's when you put in your leafy, lettuce, spinachy kind of stuff. There's the main planting season. This is where new folks get tricked. They think that last week was how it was going to stay all the time. 70s, 80s, and we're just going to bask in the sun. All will be left. We'll sing Kumbaya and surround the garden. That's not the way it is in the mountains of Arizona. It's very violent. It's very nice, and then it's bitter cold. And it wouldn't surprise me if we got a snow yet. And that's surprising for some people. But it could happen. One last freak storm. Now that's not what we see in the long-range forecast, but it could change like that. And last night was proof. It got close to freezing last night. If you were in the low trough areas, notice in your neighborhood, the ridge lines, they're warmer. And as you walk the neighborhoods, as you go down towards that dry wash, that cold air kind of settles, and that's where you get more damage is right there. So be aware of where you are. Hey, Vincent. This is our mascot, Vincent. Vincent was the very first guide dog for the blind. He was a puppy that seeded the local club. He made it to San Rafael. He's famous back there. Then they kicked him out of the program. Now, only like 10% of all the dogs actually get accepted, actually matched with a white person. He was too laid back. He's too lethargic. If he could, he would lay in bed and just eat all day long. That's what he did to be sick. So he got kicked out. So we brought him back. When he's calm enough, we'll bring him in and greet people. So that's what he does. He's actually not greeting you. He knows who the dog people are. He's looking for treats. He's looking who's got kibble in their pockets. Anyway, remember that Mother's Day is typically the day that we start planting things like this early girl tomato. So and I brought this for you just because, look, it's got tomatoes. Look, it's got tomatoes. Isn't that great? Look at that. That's exciting. Now I've got a radio show every Saturday. I've got a radio show. I write a garden column. I'm famous in the garden world in northern Arizona. I must plant a tomato plant that I can pick early before any of you, so I can get on the radio and go, I just picked my first fruit. And it was so good. It melted in my mouth. And so I'll plant 1 or 2 this size. I don't commit to all of my vegetable garden too soon. I plant it in waves so that in case I plant it too early, I can recover from that. And so I've got, this tomato plant's going to go. I actually shopped. All these plants are going home with me after class. Unless you want one, I'll go get another one. But these are things I was shopping for myself, but then I'll just share with you those plants. But I love early girl tomatoes. That's my favorite myself because I'm a salsa gardener. I love pico de gallo. There's something about tomatoes, onions, pepper, cilantro that is just melts in your mouth. I could live on that. Mexico is my country, away from my country. And when we're down on the beach, under the cabana, that's all we live on. Is pico de gallo and chips and cheese, and that's it. I can just live. That's what I garden for. That's my thing. I love roasted peppers on the grill. There's something magical about that. Stuffing them with anything, or just fresh grilled, that's what I long for. And I'll have that about a month. But sometime in June, I'll start to harvest my peppers and my tomatoes, that kind of stuff, okay? Eggplants, if you're in an eggplant, now I don't like eggplants. Eggplants, Mother's Day, you want to make sure you wait till after Mother's Day, because they are the wimpiest plant you'll ever find. Basil is just a panty waste, just a baby. It's a baby, a crybaby. It's so cold, and they just flop over and die. So you want to wait until the soil is warm. So really, some of those things, cucumbers, melons, I start with plants, not seed, and I'll wait till the soil is warm. And the soil truly is not warm till the end of May, June. So many of you, and I'll sell a boatload, truckloads and truckloads of tomatoes, peppers, all that stuff before June 1. And I don't really have time to plant before June because I'm busy. I live here. I'll start June, and my tomatoes will catch up to yours almost instantly because the soil is warm. So but don't be afraid that you're going to miss the season. There's plenty of time to plant. We're actually waiting for the soils to warm up. So it's still cold out. It's not about the daytime temperature. That's where folks get tricked. It's all about the nighttime temperature and your soil temperature. When those two things stay above about 50 degrees, 45, somewhere in there, you can start planting all in your summer plants. That would be things where you're harvesting the fruit. So not the stems, not the foliage, not the flower bract, but you're actually harvesting the fruit itself. That would be tomatoes, peppers, cucumbers, eggplants. What else has a fruit that you're harvesting? Anything that you're harvesting the fruit, melons, all that stuff. So those things are summer plants. And Mother's Day is what you hear folks talk about. Now the novices, they lose their head. So some of the locals, you hear this touted all the time. Oh, don't plant till Mother's Day, don't plant till Mother's Day. That's because they're rookie gardeners. And all they garden are tomatoes. That's it. And they made the mistake that they planted before Mother's Day. And yeah, tomatoes a tropical plant from Mexico. Of course it's not going to like being planted in March. It wants to be soil, it wants to be really warm, it wants to be hot, it loves everything about summer. So you want to wait till it's summer. Right now it's spring, so this is the time when you get things like, this is one of my favorites. I use a lot of Swiss chard, mainly because it's so delicious in smoothies, and then also it's a beautiful plant. And so I don't have your traditional vegetable garden. I don't line them up and march them through the garden like soldiers. I don't do it like our grandparents did. It's almost a landscape plant. So I use this one a lot in my container gardens, of all things. And I'll put flowers around it lobelia. That just looks good together. The reds and the yellows of the stems, it's just pretty, and it's edible. I do the same thing with kale, edible kale. Now a lot of folks plant ornamental kale. But why go ornamental when you go edible? It's not quite as pretty, but it's harvestable. So you'll have more kale and you know what to do. And I actually planted kale last fall. And I've been harvesting right through the winter because it loves everything about warm days, bright days, cool nights. As soon as it gets warm, what will happen is a lot of these things like, what's another one that's like this? Here we go, lettuce. You just can't buy red lettuces in the store. You almost have to grow it yourself, and if you can, it's organic and crazy expensive. This you can grow. This is like a weed. You should not buy this ever from a grocery store. You can grow it yourself. It's too easy. This one does great if you plant it like in March. You've been harvesting this you can plant this right now. You'll be harvesting by next week, just like that. You'll be taking the leaves off. As we get warm, as it gets up to about 90 degrees. That'd be about June. It's like maybe mid-June sometime it starts to get up in the 90s. Your leafy things will start to bolt with flower. And that's when the flavor goes off. It gets kind of bitter tasting and it's not any good anymore. At that point, I'm looking to rip those out of my garden and replace them with tomatoes, peppers, things that are summer, my beans. They all love the heat. These guys, you can't water them, you can't hold them back. Once they're hot, they go, I'm all done, they just bloom, and they become bitter tasting. It's like bitter beer face. Yeah. So seasonal. These guys like cold. They don't like hot. Tomatoes love hot. They don't like cold. Make that mark in your mind so you can, and Mother's Day is our time. That's our date that we use. Okay. Where else are we going? Another thing I noticed too, now bee populations have been on the decline. Bees are in trouble, serious trouble. Mainly the domesticated bees are in serious trouble. They're declining, and we don't know why. There's lots of, I hear blaming back and forth, and I've talked to both parties. I've sat in the same room with the scientists that are actually studying this. They've had huge grants. We have to figure this out, or we all die. We have to figure this out. So we've got top-notch scientists figuring this thing out. The domesticated bees are declining still. The wild bees are actually going up. Why the difference? I don't know. We don't know if it's a light or if we're killing them off with some chemical that we came up with, but basically the wild, your backyard bees, they're starting to go up. Still, certain crops are paying to cross-pollinate. Things like squash, pumpkins, cucumbers, things that kind of vine that big bees are really stupid. They have to bump into a flower before they actually see it. So if it's all covered up in foliage and the flowers underneath here, they have a harder time. You would think they'd be smarter at this, but they're just lazy. That's the way they are. That's the way they're programmed. So sometimes you've got flowers, they just don't bother to find it. So what I do with my own gardens is I woo the bees into certain sections. I'll actually bring them in. So I'll actually plant. It seems like bees cannot resist the color blue. So as I'm planting my gardens, I try to introduce. Now a lot of folks will say marigolds, plant marigolds. But bees don't really like marigolds. They love blue. Now aphids don't like aphids. Nothing likes marigolds. So we use marigolds as a repellent to keep aphids and thrip and that kind of stuff off of certain crops. But I'll actually plant blue to woo the bees in so it helps me pollinate some of those crops. Like I love zucchini, I love yellow crooknecks. I love growing funky pumpkins, weird, different, you can't just grow regular pumpkins. I like white or that kind of giant pumpkins. I love growing those, they're just fun. Those need help pollinating. You can go out of your way and take a Q-tip and go do it yourself and play bee and just go Q-tip to Q-tip, flower to flower. You can do that. But why when you just plant something pretty? Now it ups the beauty of your vegetable garden and it brings the bees in so they do their work better. Just a quick idea. Rosemary does that really well, especially for the early spring stuff. Yes. Cotoneaster? Yeah, they love that white flower in cotoneasters. Oh, really? The reason that bees would be on a plant that doesn't have flower is there's something else on it they're eating. So aphids or thrip. Right now the thrip, there's a little tiny insect. It's causing curling of the leaves on specifically peaches, any of the pitted fruits, peaches, plums, nectarines. We're seeing a lot of damage that way. I just had a customer in yesterday with red bud flowers. The pink flower has been blooming pink all spring. Thrip, also called no-see-ums. Sometimes they'll bite your skin and leave a little welt. They get on the leaves and they'll bite the leaf. I'll bet the bees are in eating the thrip or the aphids. They've both been bad. We have a very long, wet spring. Those early spring bugs go crazy. That's what's happening. So easy to control. Just spritz it if it's your own yard. Spritz it with. Okay, gotcha. So anyway, let's go over. What's that?
What were you going to say? Spritz it with?
Spritz it. I would say spritz it with. And I didn't bring the actual sprays. I was mainly going to go how to grow, not how to kill bugs. But the spray I would use that I use in my own gardens. There's two, because I keep my edibles purely organic. We make one down in the store called Home Harvest. Home Harvest is a liquid. It's neem oil for your organic gardens, NEEM. That's the ingredient. And we just made it super concentrated. So it's a stronger neem that you can get over, let's say, Home Dumpo or some other wolf mart thing. So it's a better product. So I would use that. First line defense, always that. Works really well also on mildew. Like squash, anything with a big leaf, we're real prone to mildew. So I'll spritz that I just know that my pumpkins are going to get mildew. I know it. So I use that as soon as the monsoon starts, I'll spritz it with home harvest. It keeps the mildew away. So it keeps that away. The other one, as we get into summer, we'll get tomato worms. Give me just a second. We'll get tomato worms and things. This big green caterpillar. In fact, she's already out looking to lay her eggs. There's a huge moth that looks like a hummingbird. It's about that big. Floats around. It's a beautiful moth. She is the culprit. She is laying her eggs on the early things, and when the eggs hatch, will turn into this ginormous, like alien life forms, like a 5-inch green caterpillar called tomato hornworm. She's the one. Those worms turn into those moths. They love peppers and they love tomatoes. So about July sometime, you'll start to see like the whole top of your tomato, this whole upper section be like all the leaves are gone. What happened? And you look closely and you'll see there's some worms on there. They blend right in, they're hard to spot. When I see that, I'll take my clippers and kind of go snip them in two, because that's the organic way to deal with any vermin, especially caterpillars. But then I'll spritz it with Captain Jack's Dead Bug Brew. That's my other, so home harvest, Captain Jack's. I'll set the stage for that. So caterpillars, cucumber beetles, things that eat the foliage, Captain Jack's is like magic, and it's all organic. We spray up to the day of harvest. Both of those, spray up to the day of harvest. And I use some common sense. Don't spray it and eat it right then. I would rinse it off and stuff. But the directions are spray up to the day of harvest. Common sense always. Home harvest is great for aphids. It's really, and home harvest for aphids has a repelling, it has an odor. So there's so many aphids are winged that are flying at us. They're just taking over. And so it creates a smell they don't like, and so it keeps them away for like a week. You could use home harvest on anything that's showing up. And specifically edibles, I made that product for me, basically. I just share it with you all. It's my organic solution to edible vegetables. Okay? Tomatoes. Let's cover that one because it's the number 1 product. I mean, we use tomatoes as heroin for gardeners. You want to introduce people, you want to introduce them to gardening, get them to grow a tomato. That's how you go. So we get kids, we do classes, all kinds of stuff. Get them started with tomatoes, then they expand to flowers, and they go from there. Finally, they're planting apricot trees, cherries and stuff. Okay? So tomatoes, specifically, here's what I do. In fact, Ken, why don't we do both? We've got that tomato handout and the vegetable calendar. Okay. Why don't we send both of those? That way they don't have to take as many notes. So I've got a handout on this, just how to grow tomatoes specifically. It's a little tricky. Right now, organics. You cannot have enough organic material in your garden, in your soil. Your soil, if you're putting plants in your raw soil, your virgin soil that the contractor scraped off all the topsoil and checked it off the edge, put your driveway in, and now you're trying to grow stuff right there, good luck. Probably ain't gonna happen very well. You need, those are weeds, so Russian sage you grow. But tomatoes, it's harder. They need organics, they need to breathe, they need richness in the soil. That's why we're always adding manures, compost, mulch, those things. You can never add enough. And you need to replenish that every year because the plants use it. They use it up. You'll actually find the soil will disappear after a while. In a raised bed, I don't know where it goes, but it just gets used by the plants. You need to replenish that every year. Something that you do. In my container gardens, because I do a lot of containers, I'm actively right now planting my containers. For my big pots, I'm looking to replace some of that soil and add some freshness in. I'm looking to add more potting soil in my pots. So I'm trying to be very aggressive with how I dig that. So if there's roots in there, there's old last year's roots, I'm trying to get those out because they don't help you. As they compost, they rob your plant of nitrogen. They take away from the plant. Some plants, you know what was growing there, can taint the soil. They actually release arsenic and strychnine. They release chemicals, especially if a juniper, walnut, some of those things were growing there. They actually try to taint the soil. So you don't really want to grow where something was growing before. You want to add some freshness. So screen that stuff out as best that you can. Then add some new soil in there. So for me, I'm trying to add our water's potting soil. That's our growers mix. So if you're to take our potting soil, it looks just like that. If you're to fill your pot up with our water's potting soil, put this in it, this plant will never know it's in a different kind of soil. It would just go, oh, more of the same. Root, grow. That's great. As soon as you introduce a plant into a different kind of soil, they are stunned, shocked. It's like taking you out of your backyard and putting you on a lunar surface someplace. Now, go and survive and thrive. They just don't know what to do. They're shocked. So plants like to go through the same exact kind of soil as possible. So they'll finally transition. That's why we use transplant shock and root and grow and things. So it helps it transition into that new kind of soil, especially trees and shrubs. But for containers, if you can do the same kind of soil, that's ideal. Plants will do well. So I'm trying to dig some of that old roots out, fill it with potting soil, plant it right in there, water it in and go. Okay. For my raised beds, I'm trying to add, or I already added 2 months ago, some manure, mulch. I also, at the same time while I was preparing that soil, so I put that organic matter on top of the soil. Before I double turn it with my shovel, basically I just go through it with a shovel. I've got small gardens. I'll add some all-purpose food. Great for heavy. So many times I don't think we fertilize our plants well enough. This is hard for you Midwest folks. You folks from Iowa, Indiana, Illinois, you have such a hard time. You come in from Wisconsin. I got a buddy who's got a garden center up there. He goes, oh yeah, we got 8-foot topsoil. Going, what? We have 8? We don't even have 8 millimeters, much less 8 foot. Good night. All we do is take our clay and throw fabric over it and rock. That's beautiful. There is not enough food in your soil. These plants, you'll find you have to fertilize more often. And then don't be wooed by that Costco aisle of Miracle-Gro. It's not as cheap as you think when you have to use it as often as they think, but it's a salt-based fertilizer. It almost does detriment to your plants. You folks online, did you hear me? Don't use Miracle-Gro. It's garbage. I've stopped selling it here at my store. It's the #1 selling fertilizer on the planet. I stopped selling it because it did more damage than good. Our water is so alkaline that that white ring that builds up in your bathtub or your sink, that builds up in your soil as well. And then Miracle-Gro adds to it, like double down. You'll see this on your containers. You see this white flaky mass build up. The more you use it, it just gets worse and worse. That's not good for your plants. So what I do myself is what I do. I'll add some of this before I turn my soil. Sprinkle some of this on. I'll also add some gypsum. Did I bring gypsum? I know I had it on the cart. There it is. Gypsum is magic for tomatoes and peppers and squash. This is gypsum, calcium sulfate, or calcium it's calcium. It's the cheapest form of calcium we put in the garden. So I use quite a bit of this where my peppers, squash, pumpkins, and tomatoes would be. Because calcium is a lack of calcium will cause blossom end rot. That black spot that forms where the flower is touching the fruit, you'll get this black rotted section to the fruit. The squash will start to form. It'll turn yellow and drop off. Those are all lack of calciums. It was very easy to front load your gardens with calcium just by adding gypsum. So I will add this before I turn my soil. I'll add this to my soil as well with the fertilizer. As I plant my tomatoes, as I plant my peppers, I know certain plants are sensitive. I actually take a little bit of this and sprinkle at the bottom of the hole, and then kick just a little bit of dirt over top of it so the roots are growing through my gypsum. So I can really increase the calcium layer of my. How much gypsum do you use? Legally, what I have to tell you is follow the directions as guided. But a little bit goes a long ways. Read the directions. This would be enough for a small. This is going home with me. I've got a 12 by 12 section, 12 by 12 raised bed, and a few containers. I'll use the whole thing. So I might get another one because I own a garden center. I can do that. right? Just to add a little bit in the bottom of the hole. But basically, just make sure you're using gypsum, because it really makes a difference on the blossom end rot that will show up in August, guaranteed, if you don't use it. Okay? Yeah.
You need to do that for the containers as well?
For the containers, I don't add for containers. I don't add it to the whole soil. What I'll do is, as I'm planting that tomato, like I'm going to plant this tomorrow probably, I'll dig the hole, get it. It's going to go in a big oxblood red pot. What I'll do is I'll dig my soil out. I'll put some fresh potting soil in. I'll sprinkle a little bit of gypsum at the bottom of the hole, kick just a little bit more potting soil, and then I'll plant it right in there. So I've got it where the roots are going to grow through it. That's how I do it. It seems to make a real difference. But those of you from other areas where you've actually had soil, what you'll find is you need to add a little bit more of these nutrients to get the plant to produce. Another big mistake I find, this is good for you Chino Valley folks, anywhere with Williamson Valley, any place where you have a lot of horses. When you have a horse, you bring it home, you go, oh Daisy, finally, I've wanted this pony all my life. Then you go indoors, you get a sheet of paper, get a Sharpie, you make a sign. And the sign, you put it on a stake, you put it in the front yard, you write on the sign, free manure. You stick it there and you're praying that someone will come and pick up this, because you're just buried in manure. There's lots and lots of manure here. Be careful with horse manure. Horse manure is basically a horse eats whatever it eats, it comes out the other end, and it's still, all the seed is there. There's this huge grub. It's like ginormous these white worms that loves horse manure. Had more customers get free manure, put in the back of the pickup, on a wheelbarrow, take it home, spread it, and then these ginormous grubs start to eat their plants. So be careful. Or they've got weeds galore. Hay and alfalfa, just stuff coming up. So make sure it's composted. If it's an old manure pile, great stuff. Then don't use manure too soon. Like I wouldn't want to put manure into my yard, my gardens right now, and then plant it right now. You want it to rest because manures are very hot. And a lot of them have a lot of salt in them. So especially if it's fresher manure. So you kind of want it to, that composting material, kind of heats it up, gets rid of the seed, gets rid of the grubs, gets rid of the salt. So those are some things just to watch because we've got such a heavy influence of horses here locally. All right, where am I at? For my vegetable gardens, as I'm going to fertilize for my containers, as through the season, I love this food. If you're only going to pick one food and that's it, I would do this one. This is an organic tomato and vegetable food by Happy Frog. The reason I like this, it's got mycorrhizal fungi in it with the fertilizer. Those are the bacteria that stimulate the roots of the plants. It's a beneficial thing that gets in the soil, activates the soil, so the plants go, whoa, the soil's alive. Well, I'm going to grow here. Boom, they start rooting out. So it fertilizes and it causes rooting both. So it's a good organic fertilizer. Okay? I think enough on food and minerals. I think, again, that'll be in that handout I'll send to you. It goes over how much, when to do it. What you'll find is you'll front load the fertilizer, the nutrients up front. Then you'll plant. Those plants will ignite when we grow. Just like for 6 weeks, it'll go crazy. And then about in June sometime, they just stop. You're going, it's hot about then. You're going, oh, maybe it's the wind, maybe it's the heat, maybe it's something else. You're going, why did it stop growing? What's happened is the plants used all the food that you put into your gardens already. So if you simply sprinkle a little bit of this Happy Frog around each of those plants or through the bed, all of a sudden it will take off just like that right again. It's not the heat, it's the food. It used all the food so that your soil doesn't have enough. So kind of watch that, put it on your radar, and watch about mid-June sometime, fertilize about then, it'll just activate it right again. I also try to hit it right before the monsoons hit. Here in the mountains, how many new folks? This will be your first season gardening here. Any newbies? So a third of the group. That's about right. Usually about Independence Day, we're doing parades, we've got fireworks. It's a fun thing. The rodeo's going on. And the rains typically start. And so we'll get this monsoon every afternoon. There's this threat of lightning strikes every place. Rain will be showing up. If you know that's going to happen, if you can fertilize the whole landscape right then, but especially your edibles, you can take advantage of the rain that's coming within days at that point. So on 1st of July, I try to fertilize the whole landscape, especially my edibles. And I take advantage of that. Rainwater is the best. Has this perfect pH, it's got a little bit of nitrogen charge to it. It's like the best. If you know that's how it's going to work, our environment works that way, you can take advantage of it, use it to your benefit. Let's go over the plants, shall we? Tomatoes. I brought an example of the perfect tomato I would look for. This is one ugly tomato. It's a heat wave. It's going home with me today and it will be planted tomorrow. But the reason I'm looking for this kind of plant is I'll actually try to, I don't know if those stems are big enough. I'll wait to do that, but I'll trim. What I'll do with this plant, I'll trim all of these limbs off of this tomato, and I want to plant this thing this deep. It'll literally be, only this much of it will be above the ground. The reason being, tomatoes are one of the very few plants. Don't do this with your eggplant, they'll die within the week. Don't do this with cucumbers, they'll die within the day. But tomatoes have got these little fine hairs up and down the stems. All those hairs will turn into roots if I get them in the soil, which is really beneficial in a dry climate. It really is a game changer. Really ups the game. It'll increase production more than you realize. So I'm trying to look for a taller, leggier tomato plant. So I got some extra stem to peel off and then plant that thing that deep. Our first home Lisa and I ever bought was in Preston Valley. Out there, it's caliche layer and clay. That's all you got. Unless you get in Timon Valley, then they sprinkle rocks in with the clay and caliche. It's magical. It's a terrible place to garden. There, I didn't have enough soil, so I actually planted it sideways, got it in the ground, and I kind of bent this thing up. I just wanted this in the ground, more in the ground. So I'll actually plant them sideways sometimes. Now I do containers. And a lot of my containers, I'll put this around the bottom of the container, plant it there, and just fill it up. And so with potting soil in that case. Yeah. Yeah. Oh, so how to prune suckers. Very good. She's noticing, you notice this one stem right there? You see that, folks? One little stem coming off. She's saying, do I prune this? I do not at first. I'm trying to get, the tomatoes especially are sugar-making machines. The more foliage I have, the more photosynthesis, the more sugars it can make, the more fruit it can have. This will become an issue. This little sucker is what they call it, will become an issue mid to late summer. When the plant is getting so big and I want to prune things back, that's when I will take out some of the suckers. The other thing I try to do, and this is just personal experience, I personally try not to let any of my leaves touch the ground. There's, again, tomatoes, especially if you're going with heirlooms. Maybe we should mention GMO, heirloom, all the different varieties. Tomatoes, when they touch the ground, they just get disease. They get leaf curl, spotting. They love to pick up athlete's foot of the foliage. Any kind of disease, they are all game, all in. I want it all. Bring it on. And so I try not to let them touch the ground. I also try to never water my garden in the evening. Because if those plants go into the evening wet, they get leaf spot, and just disease, mildews. I try to water very, very early morning. My edible gardens especially, I'll water 6 o'clock, 4 o'clock, before 8 o'clock in the morning. Everything will be hydrated. You want your plants to go into the heat of the day fully hydrated with a camel pack on the back as possible. So you want them to be fully, and you want to harvest right after you get done watering. So in the morning, they're nice and plump and full, not when they're dry, crusty, and thirsty, and shrunken in the heat of the day. Plants will actually flex back and forth as it heats up and shrinks down. You'll notice that more here in a dry climate than other places. So kind of watch that. Water early morning. Try to make sure the plants are not wet going into the evening where you just get more disease. And specifically, tomatoes, don't let the plants, the leaves, touch the ground. I'll actually prune the leaves off if they're starting to touch the ground. I'll just go, nah, no good. I don't want Burtonell and Wilt. I don't want, I mean, I love mortgage lifter, brandywine. There's certain heirlooms I really, really like. Cherokee purple, delicious. They're heirlooms. What heirlooms means it's old fashioned, which means your grandparents grew it, which means there's a reason we probably have better ones than we did 40, 50 years ago, because they don't get diseased as easily. So the heirlooms are old-fashioned varieties, old school. You can take the seed from a Cherokee purple tomato. I thought I had another one, Rutgers, or you see where they're at. Ooh, Sweetie 100, Sweetie seedless. This is going home with me. Beautiful little fruit, just melts in your mouth, and it's virtually seedless. It is so good. I'm getting excited. Okay, this is an heirloom tomato. You could take the seed from one of these fruits, go plant it, and you get the exact same kind of plant. That's an heirloom, okay? Then we have hybrids, which means we took an heirloom and we cross-pollinated with another more robust tomato. So we get the heirloom qualities with the disease resistance from the other hardier plant. Those are our, anyway, heirlooms. Then we've got grafted tomatoes. We're taking a heirloom variety plant, which are kind of windy, disease-ridden. We're grafting them onto this very aggressive rootstock, like a beef stick, something huge, something aggressive. Actually, take a cutting gear, graft it like an apple tree or like a fruit tree, getting very sophisticated with this. And now we're going to graft it so we have a larger root mass, a more aggressive root to stimulate the fruit growth from this brandywine fruit. Then we've got genetically modified. This is Monsanto. This is the guys, the big corporations. They're doing corn. They're basically any corn you have, any corn product is all genetically modified. All soy product, all genetically modified. Maybe 10% is left. It's all Benjamin, it's all Monsanto, modifying the DNA of the seed so that they can go in with a crop duster with Roundup and nuke the entire field so nothing lives except for this one plant. That's specifically what they're trying to do. So now it makes it easier on labor to keep the weeds down, and get better production, get more bushels per acre. It's all a numbers thing. Big corporations need numbers. That's genetically modified. Okay, so they've actually changed the actual DNA of the plant. And you have to buy the seed from them. And you got to buy the seed from them. That's all again, big corporations. We are anti-Monsanto here at Waters, and we don't like them. We don't like the big companies. Anyway, plus I don't like their arrogance. There's some companies, they're just so stinking arrogant. Yeah, they're a big company.
And Bayer just bought them.
Yeah, Bayer just bought them. Yeah, because they're trying to get their chemicals with Monsanto's DNA, genetic altering stuff. And so pretty soon the fields will glow in the dark. We won't go that way. But anyway, that's not this class. Okay? It's better to grow your own in the backyard, but safer. Plus, a lot of the things, they're grown out of greenhouses out of Mexico. You never know what they're sprayed with. They're coming from Peru. They're coming from all over. You just don't know. So now you can control that. That's why I like to grow a lot of my own vegetables. And I gather that's why you're here too. And you can be successful with this. You can have good production, but you know how you learn gardening, right? By making mistakes. You're here to hopefully reduce some mistakes. And my only goal with this is get you 3 things you can take home that will make a difference in the garden right now, like this season, right now. You don't have to be an expert on everything. Just take 3 ideas and incorporate them. That'll make a difference. That's the goal. That's always my goal whenever I teach. Give them 3 things that you take home. And yours might be different than yours. Each one of us will take 3 different things that can make a difference. Okay? The plants. Tomatoes, we've covered those. Let me just make sure I got them all. Sweeties, what is this one? Heat wave, I did that example. I pulled these for a reason. Oh, yellow pear. This is the most delicious cherry. My personal favorite. Like, none of them make them in the house because they're just so delicious. And I noticed Vincent likes to eat them too, that black lab. He likes yellow pears too. But just delicious, small. We do really, really well with small. Some tidbits, some insider tips on tomatoes specifically. This is for you folks from the South. Beef steak, anything that says beef or big, or makes a huge fruit like a slicer, one slice, or make one sandwich, you're all set. Those tomatoes don't grow very well here because our season is so short. So those plants, people put a beefsteak, and I've got them over there. You could get them. We've got big tomatoes, but I don't plant them myself. And since I'm talking to my friends, I would advise you to maybe look at other varieties that maybe are better. We're famous for our beefsteaks in October. When the first frost is just about to come, the tomato plant is loaded with green tomatoes. You haven't picked one yet. Because the nights have been so cool, it's slow to take off. You're better off choosing varieties that are medium sized, not the big tomatoes. Smaller, celebrity, early girls, celebration, heat wave. All the medium sized fruits produce better for us. They'll produce sooner and more fruit. Whereas your beet, that's just kind of local mountains. This is the same for Chino Valley, same for Paulden, same for Prescott Valley, Prescott. We're all the same. We're not different. We're all the same. I would go to the medium-sized fruits or the small fruits. Cherry tomatoes, like your traditional cherry tomato, super heavy producer. Sweet 100s, yellow pears, I think are better flavored, personal opinion only, and they produce like heavy. Very, 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 very heavy. Okay, just some insider things with Romas do very, very well, exceptionally well. Romas are good in that if you're doing salsas and you're canning, you need a lot right now. They seem to produce all their fruit all at once. You just harvest them like crazy. That's a great way to go with Romas. I don't care for canning. I just want pico de gallo. I want to go out tonight, pick tonight, make today, and I'll go out tomorrow and pick some more and make it again tomorrow. That's just me.
But on that short plant, how deep would you plant that yellow pear?
These guys, how deep would I plant these? This one I would probably plant, I would just try to get some of these off, and I would plant right there. I want to leave some of this tuft right here. I'll leave up, and then I'll plant the rest. So if it's a bigger, shorter plant, that's fine. Right now I'm bringing these for selection. Rutgers Select, a tremendous bush type of tomato. So there's some tomatoes that grow as big as this building. If you let them go, they'd be huge. They'd be as big as a fence. I mean, there's not a tomato cage that can hold them. They're that big. Bush tomatoes or patio tomatoes stay shorter. So these are great for containers or in a cage. Do you want to have something short, bushy, and more contained? This is a great one for a medium-sized fruit that the bush doesn't get overpowering. Okay, especially the container areas. Let's see, jalapenos, guaranteed. Every year it's the same, always. Get your jalapenos when you can, because you run out like that. It's the most popular pepper, other than bell. Okay, bell pepper's more popular, but it's easier to find. But if you want a spicy, a flavorful pepper with heat, jalapeno, big gems, Anaheims, those are kind of my personal favorites. This is what I grow. Anaheims are big gems. I like to roast and stuff. Personal favorites.
What about pests? Do you have
I don't have real pests on these. Oh, squirrels should be shot, or electrocuted, or drowned, or something else. So, no pack rats allowed.
They all come back.
Yeah, I do keep a trap line going in my backyard where the vegetable garden is, because I have pack rats.
You mean the live ones?
No, I mean like death and decay to you and all your
What
kin.
kind of?
I'm using the Afterwards, I'll show you the rat trap we have. I use the rat trap that's on the shelf because it's easy to bait.
You have dogs?
And I've got 3 of them. I have dogs, that's why I keep it organic in the back. In the front yard, I use bait because I am surrounded. Literally, I'll catch a rat a week. I have 3 traps in the back, mainly to keep them out of the hot tub, the built-in grill, or the furniture pads, because rats and mice love those. Squirrels love that. And here you are, you get this $10,000 hot tub, they're eating a hole through it to keep warm. That's wrong. That is not right. I got this beautiful built-in grill, and you're going to make a nest down there. That is not going to happen. Not on my show. So I'm going to have I have a whole class on it on YouTube. Go to Waters Garden Center, check it out. Go up there. You get a whole class on nothing but critters. So I'll leave it with that. Okay, but you will have things if you like to eat it. So will javelina. If you like to eat it, so will squirrels, so will pack rats, so will gophers, so keep them at bay. Okay, keep them fenced out. Okay, eggplant. We do exceptionally good eggplants. All varieties. Be careful when you plant them. Remember what I said, Mother's Day. I brought this here, I've got them for sale. I'm selling to people from Baghdad to Kingman to from Sedona, Camp Verde. They come, we're a regional draw. We're that good. We are that good. We've been the nationally best garden center in the country, Waters Garden Center. We're right here in Little Prescott, Arizona. So people come from all over. So I've got eggplants, but if you live in Prescott, don't plant this yet. I'll have more. Just plant them later in May, because this guy's a wimp. If you even look at this cold, it's thinking it's cold right now, and it's what, 80 degrees. This guy likes the heat, loves summer. Same with basil. Don't plant basil too soon. It is an absolute wimp. It does not like to be below. If you can't stand outside at midnight in your swimsuit and be comfortable, this is not going to be comfortable. If you need a parka on, this needs a parka. So plant it later in summer. Too many mistakes I find when people plant it too early and it suffers. And they think it's their fault. Oh, I'm not a good gardener. My thumbs are so brown. It's all about timing. That's half of this. If we get that timing right, your garden game's going to go just off the charts. Okay, basil's kind of one of those. I'll wait until June. Okay, is there another one here? Tomatillo does accept. I love tomatillo because I'm a salsa pico de gallo guy. That green tomato-looking thing. It adds a flavor and an oil or texture. Really makes fresh salsa so good. A little bit of tidbit on tomatillo. It takes two. They need to cross-pollinate. It's one of those freaky things. It's the only one of the vegetables that needs that, but they do better with twos. So plant two. Okay. I think this is one that's kind of wimpy. It likes the heat, so don't plant too early. Okay. Anaheim peppers. I use peppers. The reason I'll take 4 of these home. Have this beautiful, big, huge, square pot. It's glazed, it's gorgeous. I plant 1 pepper in each corner. It's a big pot. And I'll put 1 hanging basket in the middle. Flower basket. So I get flowers coming through the bottom, overflowing the edge. And I have these beautiful peppers coming up. And everyone comes over going, oh, Kim, that's really pretty. Oh, you're such a good gardener. I saw it in a magazine. I just copied the same thing. But peppers are a pretty plant. They're beautiful. You bring the grandkids over, they want to pick peppers. There's something about picking fresh vegetables that brings the kid out in all of us. So this is Anaheim. This is one I like to grill, personally. It's just a bigger pepper. It's sweet, but it's got a zip to it. So I find it makes really good. Poblanos do okay. Yeah, I don't care for them as much. I don't know what to do with them. So they're good stuff. They're harder to grill. I don't know. I got my favorites. And I'm opinionated. Yellow crooknecks. Again, if you're harvesting the fruit, plant it a little later. Or protect it. So a lot of folks, I've been selling tomatoes for a month now. Mainly for my retired folks they just don't have enough golf time. So they do tomatoes, and every day they roll it out of the garage, and they grow it. And every evening they roll it back in the garage. They do this for a month, and they get this huge tomato because there's this bragging rights. Gardeners, we want to brag about, I want to be at the Rotary Club or the Pinnacle thing or church function. I go, no, I just picked my first tomato. It's so good. So there's some of that bragging right. But don't commit to all the garden. 1 or 2 is good, but not the whole thing. Lettuce we already covered. Onions, let's cover that. So this is a candy onion. You've got this. It is time to put onions in a big way. So garlics are down inside the store. Put those in. We do exceptionally well with garlic. You plant those by sets. Onions come from onion sets or onion plants. If you're harvesting the greens, I find this is the best way to go. If you're harvesting just the fruit, the fruit piece. I just have more green. I love greens because I'm a salsa gardener. You want to go out, slice off the greens, bring them in, use them, fertilize it, have it grow more greens. That's like magic to me. So this is a great way to go. And some of your sweet onions that you just can't find anywhere else, they have the great flavor you can have off of that. Yes. I have, so she's saying cilantro, how do I grow cilantro? Let's just touch on herbs real quick. We grow all the herbs really well, probably better than anywhere else in the country, except for basil and cilantro. Because it's so spring, it doesn't like spring, they like summer. We tend to plant too early for those two, so wait on your cilantro and they'll do a little better when it's warmer. For my herbs, I've got the classic mountain home. They cut out the side of the hill. You walk in the front door, you got the hole upstairs, and you walk downstairs, it's the basement, the theater room, the couple bedrooms, and an office, and out the back patio. So it's a 2-story house. It's a classic, great vistas. So the very bottom of this is where I do a lot of gardening. There I've got a lot of containers, and I took raised beds, and I just took a paver and put it at the bottom of the hill, and then backfilled with some good soil. So I've got these beautiful raised beds going down this classic mountain hill. It was terrible, muddy, the dogs are bringing stuff in. Now it's beautiful. It's like a tower, it's like Gardens of Babylon or something. It's just beautiful. And it grows really, really well because I've got the soil that I've added. I just basically tried to garden my own soil. It's a north slope, it's up an Eagle Ridge, heavy clay. I was killing everything. So okay, that's it, I'm a gardener. I enjoy gardening. I just did this raised bed thing. It really made a difference. In my containers, I'll actually plant things like potatoes in my containers. The best way to plant potatoes is in a container. And so I'll plant them in big used growers pots because I have unlimited sizes and variety. And so I'll put some potatoes in the bottom. I'll put some potting soil on top of it. As it grows, it puts that long runner or stem or vine. I'll just backfill as it grows. So the top of the pot. And in the summer and fall, I'll just dump the pot out. Harvest all the potatoes. So easy.
So
Easier than a fork.
Soil right over the potatoes.
Just barely. I'll just barely cover it. Maybe here's my potato. I'll put maybe a couple inches of soil. And as it grows, I'll just backfill it. And the longer that stem is, the more soil, the more potatoes will form up and down that vine
So
of the
how
potatoes.
much vine do you let?
As much as you can possibly get.
No,
For
I
me,
mean when you're backfilling, how much should you leave?
only a couple
exposed?
inches at a time. Leave a couple inches exposed at a time as it grows.
You need to cover a couple inches.
Yeah, leave the foliage, it comes up.
Yeah.
I'm not explaining this right. The leaves that are at top,
Yeah.
I'll leave those leaves growing, and then as it grows, I'll just backfill more and more and more and more and more. And the more stem you have, the more vine you have to grow potatoes. You'll have bushels. This little bag will make about 10 pounds of potatoes. It's crazy. And I also find personal experiences from potatoes. Reds do better. They're not as popular. The reds have a heavier production, at least in my own gardens. Russets and the yellows and the others are Yukon Golds are more popular. I have better production out of it. It's personal experience. Oh no. Oh, good question. You have to plant these. Is there a direction?
Yeah.
No, just check them in the ground, bury them, and they'll just grow. They're like magic. They don't care. They'll grow. They'll grow. Yeah, they'll grow. Let's see. We're close. Where am I at? Couple last lessons, and we'll kind of go. We're almost at an hour. And I'll field a couple questions. Okay? As long as they're good questions. There's no dumb questions in gardening. Burnout. If you've got weeds, Roundup is not good for your vegetable garden. Okay? It's a chemical. We're actually finding it's worse than we thought it was. They're seeing tests now going, oh my gosh, it causes all kinds of late time diseases. We've stopped carrying the glyphosates just because we're starting to see this play out. And so this is Roundup. It's the #1 weed killer on the planet. We've switched to burnout, all organic. It's a crazy concentrated vinegar with an oil added to it, and it does work very, very well. Burns off the weeds right off. Now, if you're using this in the vegetable garden, I mainly brought it going, if you've got weeds before you plant, spray it with this, not Roundup, or weed it by hand. Or as you see a big garden, if you want to spray it instead of weed it, this would be a good organic alternative for the bigger vegetable gardens. All organic, concentrate, we're ready to use. Yeah. This one, a spreader sticker or sprayer? Spreader sticker. Surfactant. So this would benefit from a surfactant. Her question was, do you need to put spreader sticker with it? See, I didn't want to go down that path. You brought this up. This is concentrated liquid you put in your pump-up sprayers, how I use them. Spot treat things. I'm a strong believer in a tank a week. Keeps all the weeds at bay. So before I'm waiting for all my women to go to church, I'm always ready to go beforehand. They're still getting ready, and I know I will be late. It's just the way we are. And so I go kill weeds because it makes me feel better. So when I go to church late, I don't need God as much. So anyway, wrong path. What I do with this is I'll get a spreader sticker and this, and I'll mix them both. Spreader sticker is it's a wetting agent. So a lot of our weeds we have here has a real fuzzy leaf, or they're very waxy. And so you notice the sprayer will stick on there and then it'll roll off. That's not good. You want it to stick and coat the leaf. Or if it's a fuzzy leaf, let's say a horehound right now. Beautiful blue weed. It's got a fuzzy leaf to it. The spray will float on top of the leaf so you can't get it to penetrate and kill. If you put the spreader sticker and the weed burnout together, you get a better knockdown kill rate. So yes, I do use them both together. More than I wanted to cover. Here's what I really wanted to go over. This is important for this area. Tomato and blossom set. If you're going to grow tomatoes or peppers, get one of these. I'll have to repeat it. If you're going to grow tomatoes and peppers, you need to get a blossom set. And here's the reason why. And it's totally misrepresented. When you do an internet search or something, people don't know how to use this. The way this really works, plants will grow like crazy and they'll just be this big green tomato, no fruit. And people will come in about the end of June, July, they're starting to get concerned, they got this tomatoes this big, no fruit. What happens is you're putting too much manure, too much nitrogen in the soil, and so it's growing all this green growth, and the plant is growing so active, so fast, it forgets to slow down and set fruit. What Blossom Set does, it's not a pollinator. You don't go through and spritz the flowers. You don't spritz the flowers, you're spritzing the whole plant. But what the tomato vegetable set does, it forces the plant to slow down and reset. It just gets it to breathe, going, now wait a minute. You know you're a tomato plant, right? You're not just growing leaves. You need to, slow down and set the flower and start setting fruit. So what I'll do is I'll get my plant up to about this big, and I'll start using this every other week. And I go through and I just go spritz and go and be happy. And I spritz the foliage, not the flowers. I can't emphasize that enough. And if you do that, you'll find you get a much sooner production. You'll get fruit faster, and you'll get more of it. It works exceptionally well on, for me, tomatoes and peppers, obviously, because that's what I'm growing. It also works on cucumbers. Works on anything edible. So you go to Walmart or something, these little 8-ounce bottles, that's going to do nothing for you because they don't know how to use it. You want a big bottle. This is probably a season's worth. I just go boom, boom, boom. Now, once a week I'm spraying my stuff. When I start my gardens, I get one of each of these. I get a rot stop and I get a blossom set. So when my plants are up to this size, I'll start once a week. It gets this, the other week it gets this, and I spritz the foliage. The reason I'm doing the two, blossom set forces the flowers, the plant to slow down and start setting fruit. The rot stop, it's liquid calcium. Calcium is an issue here. You won't have enough nutrients, and you don't have enough calcium. And so what this is, it's a liquid calcium, so I'll spritz this liquid, even though I put gypsum in the soil, I'm putting the liquid on top as well. So what it does, it brings the flavor out in the fruit, and it makes the fruit larger. So this makes the fruit better. This brings on more fruit. If you use this once a week, just alter them back and forth during the growing season, you'll have amazing production and amazing fruit. The whole plant, yeah. I just go around and go, I'm kind of casual about
But
it.
it doesn't matter if it hits the blossom.
No, it doesn't matter if it hits a blossom,
Oh,
but I find that novices, they think it's actually pollinating flower. It's not made to pollinate the flower, it's made to actually slow the plant down so it forces it to set fruit. Kind of complicated, just trust me, it really does work. And I do it every year, the same way every year, been doing it for years. And that's the reason we sell this size instead of smaller sizes, because that's what it takes to really do the job well. Okay, so it'll really make a change. Now we're into the question phase. You've had enough questions. We're going to the back of the room. Yes, to our guests. Yes.
Is it true that the plants that make, or the fruits need more water? Should they be on a separate watering schedule?
So as a plant produces fruit, good question. So is it true, if I got this right, as a plant sets fruit, it needs more water? You need to be more water conscious. Is that the gist of the question?
Yes, versus the lettuce.
Oh, gotcha.
Like, do I water them all the same?
Okay, versus lettuce, leafy stuff. So yes, your summer plants will need more water than your spring plants, because spring is so cool, and probably we have snow and moisture and stuff. And May and June is our hot, dry months. So yes, you will need to water more in May and June. When the rains come in July, the pressure's off. I'll actually back off or slow down on my watering. What I find though is, as my plants produce fruit, they're more sensitive. So I'll watch, I'm really monitoring closely as the fruit starts to set. If I let it go dry too fast, it'll actually rob the moisture from the fruit to keep the plant alive. So I'll get some fruit drop, and some things will happen. Cracking, things will happen. So I'll watch it as my start to set fruit. Usually, the end of June, July, August, I'll kind of watch it real closely. That's kind of my water schedule. Yeah.
Saying that tomatoes are cracking because they don't have enough water?
They don't have, or there's too inconsistent. The dry climate that we have, the skin will be a little thicker, you'll notice, than other places. And sometimes we can get this crack. And so that's when you're swelling from moist, plump, to undry, moist, plump, undry. That swelling back and forth causes that crack. That's what causes it. She doesn't have, you haven't asked a question. Do you have one? Oh, yeah. Go for it.
What do you think of razzmatazz
Razzmatazz
grape?
grape. I don't know. I don't know what a razzmatazz grape is. Maybe that's why I didn't answer that. Probably. Oh, I've grown a lot of grapes. I grow mainly table grapes because I love going out with the grandkids and picking grapes. We just eat till we're gorged.
This was a grape I saw catalogs,
Yeah.
and it's supposed to be a Demerara grape.
Yeah. Okay. I don't know. I'd love to have a first test victim to try it. If it works, I'll start ordering it in. We have a lot of grapes, a lot of wine grapes. Mainly the ones that really, once they test themselves out, they're really proving well, then I'll start breeding them. Yeah.
The weed killer, does it kill the seeds too, like on corn?
Burnout does not affect the seed whatsoever. Sorry, I wish it would. In the vegetable garden, the way to get rid of seed, bury them alive with compost. That's where your organic top dressing. Sometimes what I'll do is I'll take newspaper, and the ink they use is not organic, but I don't worry about the little bit of ink that's on there. I'll just lay newspaper down in between the rows. I'll put some straw or some compost, what I would like to use. Wood chips have been used. I'll use that, just a 2-3 inch layer, that keeps my weeds down. So, or the hoe, once a week, haul them out. You can do it that way in the back.
I have two questions. I have a basil plant growing in the house and it's tremendous.
Yes, it would
When
be.
I move it outside, do I need to increase the pot?
Oh, good question. So she's got a basil plant. It's inside doing great, because if you're comfortable, it's comfortable. So it would love indoors right now. she's saying when she brings it back outside, does she need to increase the pot size? So you're not going to put it in the yard. You're actually going to keep it in the pot. Do I need to upsize the pot size? What size is the pot it's in now? That should be more than enough. Let's just cover real quick pots while we're doing this. The minimum size pot I'll grow, this is kind of the minimum. I actually like a little bit bigger soil than this. This is made to be in a cage. You can just put it on a patio and just grow by itself, just like, and it will produce. I'm fully intending to plant this. I'm going to cut this cage off, take it out of the pot, put it in my own pot. Because I like beautiful glaze. I like artistic pots. It should look like an art form. For this, I like a minimum size that big, about that deep for a tomato. And I'll grow 1 tomato. I've had earth boxes, those big square boxes like this, about this deep. I'll grow 2 tomatoes, one on this side, one on this side. For my big square pot, like this, about this tall, I know the roots aren't going to go to the bottom. It's not about the volume of the soil. It's about the beauty of the pot and how it looks when it's done. I want it to look like it's overflowing with life and I'm just eating off of it. Garden Eden stuff. So there I put four peppers. These are big peppers. They'll get like this. You'll swear it was one big, huge pepper plant, but it's 4 of them. And I'll have something crawling, usually calibrachoa is what I've been using, trailing in between to go over the edges because I want it to look artistic. That's this size by this size square. What is that? 14 by 14 by 2 feet tall. The minimum size, I would say this. What the book says is minimum of 8 inches of soil or about 1 cinder block. I find that's not quite enough soil in a lot of gardens, especially for bigger things like potatoes, tomatoes. There's some carrots. They like more soil, so I generally will say go 2 blocks is enough. Just personal experience I found. So, but what the book says is 8 inch. I would go a little more.
And Earth Box auto waters?
Earth Box has a self-watering. It's got a reservoir at the bottom.
Is that okay?
It's okay.
Drink at night? I mean, it'll
Yeah.
drink like once.
It's okay. Yeah, what I'll do with the Earth Box, if you know what an Earth Box is, it's pretty popular. It's got a tube that you water in. You water from the bottom. And you just water everything from the bottom. What I'll do is I'll take my drip system and I just put it right there and it just goes and waters when it waters everything. Everything in my yard is automatic. Hate watering. Some of you love watering. Your hobby is watering, not gardening. You love going out there, just water, water, water. I hate that. I just want drip automation everywhere. So I just put the dripper right down in there and just have it run and fill up that reservoir. So that's how I do that. Okay. It does really well, amazingly well. Squash. I'll put a squash inside. It does amazing. Radishes does amazing. They're pretty good. But I'm trying to, as I go along, I'm changing my containers to prettier. Earth boxes they're butt ugly. They're just ugly. They're big old plastic square thing. They're just, so I'm trying to, their pots are expensive, so I add like 1 a year. So in the back.
I'm on my 2nd year here in Prescott Valley. My root plants don't even come up. My gourds and tomatoes do come.
So your root plants, so carrots, potatoes,
Carrots, radishes,
that kind of stuff don't come up.
I need 0.
Well, why is that?
I'm asking you.
Well, I don't know. It's probably the soil. Those things probably in Prescott Valley. You said you're in Prescott Valley? So his root crops, for those of you over here and online, thanks for tuning in. You folks, he has root crops that are not doing well, but his regular crops like gourds, pumpkin, the other stuff
Squash,
does great.
green beans.
Why? What is it his root crops come up?
Above ground does well, below ground no.
Usually you've got real heavy clay soils. Root crops are not going to like heavy clay. They like light, airy, feathery soil. So they can form that big, long root carrots. Another insider tip on carrots is personal experience. I don't grow big, long carrots anymore. They're too painful to watch themselves self-destruct. I like the short carrots. The baby carrots, they do exceptional. Radishes do exceptional. So the shorter root crops seem to do better. I notice just some other quick things. Big melons, watermelons. I don't grow those. The season's not long enough. I can't seem to get them to produce. I go with the baby ones. They produce like crazy. So these are things you learn as you garden. You just pick up on these, and it may be a little different in your yard. If you're gonna start with the small ones, the shallower ones. You'll find you'll do better. What I try to do in my own gardens, 80% or 90% are for the core stuff I love to grow. I know I'm gonna grow every year. These are my favorites. I always leave about 10%, a little more, of the garden for funky, weird, different, unusual, I've never done that before, stuff. Because I'm a gardener, and I like figuring out, what do I do with kohlrabi, or what do I do with this funky gourd? What do I do with patty pan gourd? I don't know what to do with it, but it forces me to try it and see it, and play with it. It's just, have some of the garden be fun. You make a mistake, oh well, it was just for fun anyway. Don't beat yourselves up. I'm giving you permission to kill plants. It's okay. It's how we learn to garden, okay? So yeah. Oh, she asked me if I have any opinions. Yeah, I've got opinions. Specifically straw bales. It works really good. There's a whole system in straw bales you can actually plant. It's like a raised, it's a container garden, it's straw. And then when you get done using it, you break it apart, use it as mulch, or you use it again for a couple of years, eventually it rots out. It works well here. I haven't done it myself. I think God intended us to grow in dirt. But straw is good. I've had very good customers do very well.
Are they specific for planting, or do you just look at those things that they got?
Go to Olson. There's not one specific for planting. It's regular old straw. Straw is what they're using, not hay. What I understand.
Do you use the soil with it, or just plant it in there?
I think they've done both. I've heard both. I'm not sure. That's where I'm not the one to ask. I haven't done it yet. So yes.
How much sun do tomato plants?
Oh, good point. How much sun do we need to have for not just tomatoes, for the garden? The answer is 6 hours or more. You need sun. Okay, 6 hours or more. That even goes for a lot of your herbal things. Like I've been picking parsley for months, since January. It's an amazing perennial herb. Amazing. When I get hungry, and you might see some basil plants back here that just have yummy. They're so good. I love basil. Oregano. Does amazing. Perennial. Thyme. Lavender. Have I bring lavender back? This is Nico lavender. Super, super hardy, fragrant, beautiful blue flower lavender. Animals don't eat lavender. You can grow this right out with a javelin or roam around, and they won't bother it. Rosemary, they won't bother it. Herbal things, animals don't bother. And so you can have this out even where you have pressure from deer and the critters, they don't bother this. But lavender's a big family of plants. So there's wimpy ones and there's super tough ones. This one's super tough, called Nico lavender. Okay? One last question. 2 last questions, and then I'll hang out. Guys first, just because it seems like I've been picking on the guys.
I struggle with sweet corn.
Okay? Then don't grow it.
It's a GMO anyway.
What can you do to get it to grow?
Gotcha. So corn, he's struggling with his corn, sweet corn specifically.
Yes.
And it's fun to grow corn. Corn is very, very nitrogen intense. So it's a huge grass is what it is. And so you need to front load this even more than a lawn. I mean, you just need to front load a bunch of manures. Nitrogen, 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 often. I'll bet that's where it's going wrong, is you don't have enough organics and enough nitrogen to get that much growth. So probably focus in on that, and it'll change your